Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little tutorial on how to go about getting this really cool vocal effect using a really neat plugin called Manipulator. Now I'm going to show you what this project sounds like before I go and do this. I do want to point out though, the vocals are already pretty heavily affected, so I do just kind of want to clarify the effects you hear right now are not what I'm talking about in this video. There's something else we're going to add to this to make it even cooler. But before we go about anything, let me go ahead and play you what we have right now so you can get a feel for what we're going to be doing. Okay, so that's what we got right now. Obviously there's this really pitched down effect, and it's super spacious and far back in the mix, and we have this really cool lo-fi house project going on. What we're actually going to add to this and make this more interesting is this really cool vocal stack. We're going to take this single layer vocal and make it sound huge. Now, this is commonly kind of confused with vocoding. This is not actually 100% vocoding. It's similar in practice, but it does actually get you quite a different sound. It's mainly to do with repitching it to follow whatever notes you put in, for example, the chords of the track, which is probably what I'm going to be doing here. So before we even go about adding Manipulator or anything like that, we're going to add a new track right here, paste our vocal in, and go ahead and make it unique. So we have a new instance of that same vocal, which is going to go on its own mixer channels. Right now, the free one I have is 16. So of course, with nothing additional, currently sounds like this. I'm going to make sure we add that to our sidechain track as well, because this is going to end up being the affected layer that plays in combination with our original vocal, and we're going to want that to be sidechained. Now though, before we do anything else, we're going to make another instance that's temporarily just going to be like Serum or something. Could be whatever you want. In the end, we're actually going to replace this and it's not even going to make sound. But just for the time being, while we figure out the notes we want, it does need to make sound. This is where I'm going to figure out the chords to this track, and that's going to end up being part of our vocal effect. So the way I'm going to do this is actually go into my bass line, which you know right now sounds like this. This actually tells us the chords. It's just this descending rhythm from like B to an A to a G and then back up. So we're actually just going to copy it like so, like that, get some of our root notes, and throw this into that Serum instance. So here's like the root of our chords right now. We're going to build these up into the actual chords that we're going to use. Just put those together quickly. That's going to be a minor though, change that. Should be like this. So on a basic level, these are our chords. We can go about like adding inversions or whatever in a bit, but you'll see right now if we play this with the vocal, it's going to sound good. I am going to filter it a bit though, just so it's not as obnoxious. So now, remember I said we're actually going to replace that Serum instance. We're going to do that now. In FL Studio, you want to replace this with MIDI out. So this does not actually make sound. You'll see we want to set the port up top to just 1 or whatever's free. In this project, it's going to be 1. You don't hear anything. That is intentional though. We're actually going to make the vocal play those chords. So if we go to our instance, which is Mixer 16 on here, and we open up Manipulator, as I said, what you want to do is press this gear symbol at the top, and then go to this one, and set your input port here under MIDI to the same as whatever you had to set that to under MIDI out. Now if you hit play, it sounds like this. So it's very broken and horrible right now. That's something that probably won't happen if you have a dry vocal. Obviously this one, the stem itself actually just has a lot of effects, it's very spacious, it's got reverb on it, and that tends to sort of glitch this out a little bit. But a couple of ways I go about fixing that. Number one, it actually won't really be too obvious in the mix anyway, but I do like to throw it up an octave just to kind of clean things up a little bit. Once it gets very low and muddy, that's where you'll get a lot of that. So it's still a little glitchy, but we're also going to mess with form in a bit, and you have stereo over here to make this a bit wider. You could also mess with some detuning. Again, on its own, this is not going to sound good. That's the really weird part about this. As I did say, if you have something that's more dry, it should sound a little better on its own, but oftentimes you'll find this will sound really strange until you put it in context with everything else, and that's just kind of where like all those artifacts are masked by the rest of your instrumental or even your vocal, and it will just sound good. So we're going to do a bit of tweaking here. We're also going to spread out our chords a bit, so that way there's nothing that's happening too low. Try something like this. Also going to throw on an EQ. Get rid of a lot of that low end and this harsh mids here. So I've demonstrated enough about how this sounds on its own, and as I say, not that great. But when we throw our original vocal back on and listen to this again, you're going to hear how this now just kind of makes your vocal in the background follow the chords of your track, and it's just going to make it sound bigger. So right now, with it off, it sounds like this. Whereas with it on, so I really like that effect, but right now the volume is kind of all out of control. It's jumping around. We want this layer to be super compressed, so that way the volume is mega consistent. I'm literally just going to throw gain reduction on it. This is like my favorite single band compressor. It's massive. Something like that, just to make it a little more level. Throw it in with everything else. So now, you know, it's still pretty messy, but if we throw everything on, like the entire rest of our track, watch how cool this vocal sounds now. Just messing with formant a bit to try to make it a little higher. That's pretty nice. I kind of want to give it something lower though, like another octave of our bass line. That's a quick little demonstration of how that sounds. It's super cool once you start tweaking it a bit. There's also a lot of presets that you can now use with this effect on. So for example, if I click on this and just listen to that with our vocal, this one definitely needs to be pitched up. It sounds terrible that low, maybe 2. That's pretty nice. You're gonna notice that's gonna cut through nicely. Alright, so that's pretty helpful. I hope this has helped you out. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more. But I'll catch you guys in the next one.